So I'm really delighted to welcome another colleague, friend of mine, a storyteller, who is joining us to be sharing her journey of storytelling. Lavanya Srinivas. Lavanya Srinivas is an expert faculty for narratives and storytelling at National Institute of Fashion Technology, Chennai campus. She is the founder and director of Katha Kamamishu, a professional development center for creative educators, story coaches, teachers, and trainers. She's well known as a communications coach, soft skills trainer, story coach, creative educator, and professional storyteller. While wearing these hats over the 3 decades, Lavanya has found that there is a common thread that runs through all her roles till date, and that is the power of stories. So, waiting to listen to your story of storytelling, Lavanya. Thank you for joining us.
भिन्नक भिन्नक धिन धिन भिन्नक भिन्नक धिन धिन भिन्नक भिन्नक धिन धिन भिन्नक भिन्नक धिन धिन. It was night. The drums were being softly beaten in the distance. As the sounds became louder, children ran out of their houses. "The Jatra is coming!" exclaimed one little boy. "Jatra!" shouted a little girl. "Hiya! We are going to play in our village tonight." The children watched excitedly as the procession drew near. Some men carried hurricane lamps on their heads. When they reached the clearing beneath the banyan, they put down their lights and sat in a circle. They all put them in a circle. The drums beat faster as the people gathered there. Dha dhinna, dha dhinna, dha dhinna, dhin. Dha dhinna, dha dhinna, dha dhinna, dhin. The smell of roasting peanuts filled the air. The October mist was thick and cold. Men, women, children, all wrapped in their shawls, tightly around themselves. Suddenly, the storyteller leaped out from behind the banyan. In his hand, he held a one-stringed instrument, an ektara, ting, 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 ting. His hair swung down to his waist. Everybody cheered because he was their favorite storyteller. So, my dear friends, this is the visual of a storyteller. And this is the place, the Jatra in Bengal, the folk storytelling tradition. I read to you just that bit from this book from Tulika Publishers, Hiss, Don't Bite. This story is by Vayu Naidu and the art is by Mugdha Shah. Why am I telling you this? It's just to share my storytelling journey. As I started my storytelling journey, I realized a few valuable things that we always, especially as storytellers, tell stories. Stories written by people, stories created by us, that which we heard and that which we read. So it's very, very important to acknowledge the storyteller. Equally important to tell them the source from where we got the story. This is because of the ethics that are involved. Because the very many questions that were asked when the paper presentations were invited, these questions always ran in my head. Whose story are we telling? Who is telling the story? And are we appropriating? What about the cultural appropriation? These questions come up as storytellers and as academicians. Kadalina ponore, kana vanila ponore, kadalina ponore, kana vanila ponore, poi varum polenda kondu varum. Poi varum polenda kondu varum. Kai niraya, poi varum polenda kondu varum. பதினாறாம் ராவிலே பாலாடை திரையிலே மல்ச கனிக்க மாணிக்க மாணிக்கம் கொண்டு தரமோ ஓஹோ By now you would have realized that I don't know the ABC of music or singing. But why do I do that? This was the little girl who danced to this Malayalam song. I didn't know one word of Malayalam, but this song is still there fresh in my mind, where I danced with many people, and there were these gestures that were taught to me. Today we call them choreographers, but in our school, there was a dance teacher who gave us, and these were just mudras for me, the symbols for expressing. And that meaning has stayed with me till today. Sandamamarave, Jabil irave, Kondekirave, Gogupuluteve, Sandamamarave, Jabil irave. So this is the song that I listened to when I was a small kid. This is my mother tongue. The connect, the every word I could understand. Sandamama, I'm sure all of you do understand. It's the moon, the enchanting moon that is there up in the sky. The Sandamama stories that we all connect to. So the meaning is understood in two ways, with the spoken word and with the visuals, the words and the visuals. So for me, if it is a language that I did not understand, it was the symbols, the visuals, be it cartoons and be it pictures, they're all a part of the visuals. So each one of us have this great ability. We are all storytellers. You know something? Man is not just a social animal. He's a storytelling animal. Yeah, we are wired for stories. That is what I have realized through my journey. Don't think, why is this a class or something? No, I'm just sharing you my experiences. And I have realized that each one of us is a storyteller. We are born to tell stories and to listen to stories and to make stories. And just as I read that little bit of words from the Hiss Don't Bite story, we know that storytelling, rather I realized in my personal journey that storytelling is a combination of narrating a story and telling the dialogues. So it's a beautiful combination of the spoken word in two ways. Just as a narration as to telling the situation, what is happening, the description of the context and the place that it has been happening, but the dialogues spoken create the magic. They make you feel that the story is happening here and right now. Yes? This actually is a beautiful learning for me when I heard so many speakers, the academicians, since the morning, each one of them sharing their own experiences and linking the performance with the theory, the hands-on experience. For me, I have been a performing storyteller. I've been an oral storyteller, and I've been a teacher, trainer, and a theater practitioner, and also a therapist. Must be wondering, I don't have a doctorate with me as a doctor, sorry. I'm not a clinical psychologist as well. But we all know that there is something called expressive arts therapy. Just like music, just like dance, storytelling is also a therapeutic tool. When we tell the words, the spoken words, remembering the instances, our own memories, our own experiences, let them be sad, let them be joyful, whatever it is. When we retell those experiences help us to restructure our lives, to redesign our future. I heard somebody also mentioning that once the story is told, the story is dead. I do understand, but in the morning paper, they also said that the story would rise again, just like a phoenix. Yes, rising again from the ashes. This is what I realized in my storytelling journey, that storytelling, the difference between an essay, they have the three parts. I mean, pardon me because I keep transitioning between the theory and the experience, because I also happen to teach narratives and storytelling as a guest faculty in the National Institute of Fashion Technology, Chennai. So I feel sometimes I become a student, sometimes I become the teacher, sometimes I'm the storyteller, sometimes I'm the listener. So storytelling merges these parallel worlds so beautifully. When the storyteller, the listener, and the characters in the story all come together, they merge, and that is when the rasanubhava is created. The beautiful feeling that fills your heart. Okay, now this brings us to Bharata Muni, the great person who has mentioned. Of course, we have Bharatanatyam dancers and Kathak dancers and so many others who all have their experiences and their theories that they have learned from Bharata Muni. And those are the emotions, the Navarasas. So I will be going back and forth, because that is how our stories are. They're multi-layered. So when a narrative artist or a storyteller tells the story and suddenly slips into the flashback or suddenly goes into the future. So these are all beautiful journeys that each one of us have gone through. I would like to share with you one small thing, how these visuals impact us, because what exactly is storytelling? We'll have to go back to the first question. So is it just telling a story? Maybe, but no, not just that. I realized that storytelling is much more than telling a story. Then what exactly is that? I wondered. And then I realized that telling a story is just telling, and the story becomes important. As I told my students, when they asked me what is the difference, then I realized that telling becomes important in storytelling. That is the style, that is the presentation, that's how we communicate. When the concept and communication are important, the story, the content is important in the story. It's the way we communicate that makes us the storyteller, that creates the magic, that creates the impact. Yes. So I must here first thank Deepa Kiran, who has been a wonderful storyteller and a great human being. Our paths kept, crossing. since a long time as a teacher, as a trainer, or in the academic paper presentation sessions, or as performing storytellers. So I would fail in my duty if I do not thank her for this wonderful opportunity. And of course, Indica, Team Indica, you are my dream come true. Because as an academician and as a storyteller, this beautiful thoughts keep crossing my mind all the time. I'm always preoccupied with so many thoughts that keep coming into my head. What exactly is a story? And how do we tell stories? What is storytelling an art? Of course it is. But is it just an art? No, it is a skill, a craft as well. And then, so is storytelling just an art? A just skill or a craft? Or is it much more than that? Of course it is. Then what is it? You have a science behind that. Because, we are so used to this brain that looks for reasoning, for logic, for validation. So science is a wonderful tool. So again, since morning, we have heard the academicians and storytellers share that storytelling is a phenomena that happens here. It's the neurons that keep working. Yeah, the mirror neurons. Here again, let me just, one more interesting point that I observed in my journey is in Telugu, we have a small saying, Avalintaki Anna Unnadu, Tummuki Tammudu Ledu. Have you ever yawned and seen people around you also yawn? But when you sneeze alone. That's because when you yawn, the neurons are activated, the mirror neurons. The same thing happens when you're telling a story. That is why we cry, we weep when we watch a movie or a serial or read a book when it is so impactful. Yeah, I realized that storytelling touches your heart and transforms you as a person. Here again, my experience and my journey has taken me into the world of duality. Yes, because the storyteller's journey is a parallel journey, just like the narrative or the story. Because we have the story arc and the narrative arc that I have. All these things are my learnings along the way. As a student of literature, I have done Telugu literature, and as a diploma holder of linguistics, and a bit of German that I have learned at the Max Miller Bhavan. All these things have made me realize the importance of the spoken word and the written word. But then what made me realize that there is something more to storytelling than just words, the visuals? I will tell you. I'll have to go back in time again. Margari Tingal Malaninal. Yes, you can hear a bit of Tamil because I was born and raised in Madras, which is Chennai today, the creative city. In the streets of Tiruvallikeni, Triplicane, in the background of the Parthasarathi temple, the Venkata Krishna is the main deity there, the Moolavar. And you have Andal. Just now, the Dhanur Masam went past, the Margari Masam, and you have a heroine of the hearts, Andal, calling out to all her friends while following the Katyayani Vrata. Don't you get the visuals of your teenage? See, I always felt that Andal was somehow kept on a pedestal, in a shrine like this, up in the temple alone. She is there in each one of us hearts. In the hearts and the lives of the youngsters, of teenage women, teenage girls, and young adults, brimming with love, brimming with the beauty around, and the excitement that is brought in. So it is just not enough to imagine Andal as the great goddess or the Mirabai of South India. I must say Mirabai is the Andal of North India because chronologically Andal comes first. So I feel my journey as a storyteller has helped me reimagine Andal and to demystify her and her life's journey. And I also chanced upon a beautiful temple in Telangana recently. So as a storyteller, when I was researching about a story, or as I was traveling and I chanced upon a temple, there is so much behind it all. Again, coming back to the stories, the building blocks of storytelling, I realized, is not just the story, that's the joy of story by listening to it or telling it. It's not the art of how you tell the story, or it is not just a skill as well. It's a collaborative art. And that is what today's topic, the indigenous storytelling styles of India, yeah, that Indica is trying to bring all of us together, the practitioners and the paper presenters, the performers and the pedagogy people, I would like to call the academicians as. It's bridging the gap between the two, and that has been my journey too. I would like to bring to you another beautiful experience with mine, because as a teacher, first, I started off, of course, much before as a Doordarshan artist or a radio artist, not a radio jockey, because I was telling stories, I was reading stories, writing stories, I was doing a bit of radio acting as well. So all these things made me into a spoken word artist. But Madras or Chennai, the creative city, and the place that I grew up, and my own family, I belong to a literary family, the Baladharapu family, and my neighbors were none other than the great Vidwan, Dwaram Venkat Swami Naidu. We grew up in their house. So it is when everybody else had two grandparents, two sets, the maternal and the paternal, we were lucky to have a third one where we grew up, the Dwaram family. So these are the things that make the storyteller in me, the arts, the music. So the music that the Shruti and the Laya that fills this universe. My storytelling journey has taught me one small thing. Just like the, just a couple of hours ago, there was a paper presentation about the parent as a storyteller. When I was born as just a small embryo or an egg inside the womb of my mother, the journey started there. Just the listening, the absorption. As a storyteller, that's a very, very important, crucial thing. We just accumulate, we listen, we observe. We have got to internalize the sounds, the symbols, all that are there around us, the chants, the gestures, again, the mudras, all these things we observe. And just like a child who cannot speak for a few months after he or she is born, the storyteller also is able to speak much better the language of storytelling if we listen more. How did the child suddenly speak so much? For months, these are the sounds that they can produce. One fine day, ta, mama, amma, atta. These are the sounds they speak, and the parents' faces beam. Just like that, as a storyteller, I have realized that the baby steps that I have been taking as a storyteller needed to branch off into something much, much more. So, as a translator, I was translating many beautiful books thanks to Tulika Publishers from Telugu to English. From English, I translated them to Telugu, and that made me richer by 45 plus Telugu stories. Maybe sometime soon I'll be touching the 50 mark, the half century. And again, let me tell you, the cricket matches, the Chepauk Stadium, the beautiful Marina Beach, the lighthouse, all of them were a background for me as a storyteller. That helped me to form. And then I traveled after wedding to Vishakhapatnam, the city of destiny. That's where I got married and I went. And I believe it because I did not want to go and step out of Madras. I would always tell my parents, find a groom only in Madras. But destiny had other plans for me. And I went to the city, which is so beautiful, so picturesque. And I grew richer and richer by enriching my heart. And when I came back after traveling to Rajahmundry, the Godavari, so many places, Hyderabad, the Hussain Sagar, the beautiful Charminar, and the lovely bangles, all of them added the aesthetics to my journey as a storyteller. The art, the appreciation, and the aesthetics all put together, the melting pot has become the Katha Kshetra. First, my journey as a storyteller, somewhere along the way, I wanted a logo for my Katha Kamamishu. In Telugu, Katha Kamamishu means story and its story. And then it had this international and cross-cultural feel of a Japanese term. Don't you agree with me? Kamamishu. I said, my God, this has Katha Kamamishu, the Telugu, my mother tongue word, but which has a universal and a global appeal. So I named Katha Kamamishu. And I made it the platform. And that journey took me back to Chennai with these beautiful storytellers. And let me tell you, my journey has never been in isolation. If you just remove the names and the places and contexts, it can be anybody else's journey. The journey is always a collaborative one, just like our narrative arts. Ayo re, ayo re, ayo re, ayo re. Ayo re, ayo re, ayo re, ayo sunona. Yes, are you not thrilled to look at this coward? That is almost the logo of Indica Conference. We have all featured here. But then this reminds me, as a storyteller, I had recently done a storytelling for Feast as a part, like Vinita mentioned, of the Ramayana team. And I shared my story here with the help of this prop, the coward. And I want you to see this beautiful mobile shrine, which opens like this with the beautiful people inside, one female and the other two male, small doll-like things. And then there is a panel. So why am I showing this panel to you? It is because in my journey, I have realized that our brain also works just like the coward. And it works like this beautiful panels, colorful, and then they close and they open. And you know what? This coward has a story of Ramayana on this side, and it has the story of Krishna. Krishna Leela, Krishna Katha, and Ramacharita that is here engraved beautifully. And as I told you, just like this Coward, which is a collaborative effort, storytelling is also a collaborative effort. It is the effort of, it is the coming together of the words spoken or written, the visuals, and then the verse, the beautiful music or the rhythm in it, as I mentioned before. I would like to just introduce to you this shrine, one more, the beautiful Rajasthani shrine that the artists have beautifully made with colors and other things. And again, designs. So as a pedagogist, as a teacher trainer, and as a teacher, I have realized that Panchatantra can be used as a pedagogy and even the framework, as I told you, at the crossroads of culture, at the crossroads of narratives, the Coward and the Kamishibai. And then at the crossroads of the Orissa, beautiful, the Jagannath, that is shown so beautifully. This also has brought me close to the other global storytelling art form, the paper theater, Kamishibai. You might have heard this word, Kamishibai. Even I used to start off in my early days of storytelling as Kamishibai. Kamishibai sounded something like Mirabai or Jhansi Lakshmi Bai. But then later on, I attended a workshop in the Bangalore Storytelling Festival, knew more about it from the practitioners. And also as a person, storyteller who's been researching and trying to link the storytelling visual art forms of our great Indian nation, the multicultural, the multilingual heritage, I realized that the Kamishibai can beautifully be replicated or duplicated with this Orissa shrine, with the doors here and something inside the story. Only the Kamishibai keeps moving and it has to be pronounced as Kamishibai. Yeah. So these are the small things that you'll learn. As a storyteller, my journey taught me one more thing. Many of you, especially people from Hyderabad and people who are aware of this IIT craze, know certainly about the Ramaya Institute in Hyderabad. One interview that I heard with him really resonates so beautifully with me, and I can experience it today. They asked him, what is the most beautiful time that you felt when you could, and everybody expected him to say, he was a mathematics teacher, that, the problems that he arrived and the number of students that he churned each year to get into IITs made him proud. But he said one thing. It is the beautiful moment when a student comes up to me and says, sir, why did you need so many steps? I can achieve this answer in 4 steps. Why did you have to put 10 steps? That is the most wonderful moment in my life, he said. In the same way, for me as a storyteller, I have realized that when I see my fellow storytellers or my students coming up with beautiful aesthetic ways of telling a story, it just warms my heart so much. It touches my heart and transforms me into another person. So I would like to know if I have a couple of minutes more to share my journey. Can you please?
Last 5 minutes, Lavanya.
5 minutes, wonderful. I would like to sum up my journey. As I told you, I have been a teacher and the pedagogic tool, especially I was interested here because I said, oh my God, as a teacher, with all the problems of, the syllabus, handling the children in the classroom, answering the parents and all these things. Poor teacher, because I was one, you see, how can she be energized till the last period of a class, of a school? And if she or he is not energized and enthusiastic, how can she transform or transfer that to the children? This got me into making my storytelling sessions to tweak them into workshops. Because I have realized, just like A.K. Ramanujan's folk tales collection, a folk tale from Andhra Pradesh, what happens when you listen to a story? All our storytellers always would love to refer that story because you will know about it very soon. Deepa will be sharing it. But I realized that when you listen to a story, what happens? Your face comes like this, your shoulders come closer, your ears become larger, eyes come in wonder, mouth opens. What happens? And at that moment, that is the right moment, the curious moment that is synonymous with learning. I have realized that learning happens at that crucial moment when the eyes, ears, and mouth are wide open and the body comes closer, already set to take in. So that's when I realized that storytelling is a wonderful tool, not just as a pedagogic tool, but as an intervention tool in special children and for students with disabilities and for teachers in their capacity building efforts. And of course, I have done workshops and then done some projects in SCERT and in the Tamil Nadu and in Andhra Pradesh district libraries. How do we reimagine the libraries? As a child, I grew up. You would have all seen outside the library, that was the sign when we were children. Be quiet, let people work, you do your work. But today, the spaces are redesigned. Library is the most beautiful place, the vibrant place. So we were trying in Andhra Pradesh with grade 1, 2, 3, 4 librarians, how to make the library more vibrant with storytelling sessions, with art forms, and with human libraries. Are you wondering what a human library is? I know many of you know it as well. People with rich experience and expertise, when they come to a library, all the others come sit and listen to them. The human experience and the expertise definitely is passed on to others. And that experience is what gives hope to the children, especially in the rural areas. I have realized that. And then as a trainer, and just one more minute, I would like to remind you about what I associated with learning and the narratives when I spoke about what is storytelling, not just an art, not just a craft, but a science. Because I picked up somewhere along the way that the brain learns in a different way. It doesn't require any language, though we oral storytellers depend a lot on the spoken word and the written word. Just like in communication, it's just 7% that is verbal, everything else is non-verbal. As a trainer, I have realized that, and we all know that. In the same way as a storyteller, it's the 7% that is there, but the rest of it is all the body language, the tone, and then the voice culture. The way we speak, the way, hey, what are you doing here? That power is used to symbolize or to show power, to show huge animals, to show strong men or women. Hey, what do you want? All of us who have watched Tom and Jerry, we know the small ones, the squirrels and the rats. So how we use the story? the voice to bring in the characters. So the story arc, and that is the narrative arc, is my external journey, having a context, having characters in my life. And then the course of the story goes every day, same thing happens. And suddenly one day there is a conflict. That was the conflict I faced at the time of the pandemic, because I believed that in this world where technology is growing leaps and bounds, and I said human intervention is very important. We must tell stories. But one fine day, lockdown was announced, and we are still going there in the same. And that is when I realized that technology can be a boon. So these are the learnings that I have picked up along the way. And as a teacher and as parents, we tell stories, and it's all printed there. Moral of the story is, and I have learned not to tell that word. I always, like many other storytellers or most other storytellers, leave that to the audience. Because when we tell morals, there's just one. When we leave it open and ask the listeners to tell the stories, they come up with so many more options. And those are the beautiful perspectives. So the character arc, as I told you, the conflict is the problem. How did I face it? I learned technology. I swallowed my pride. And then I started using digital storytelling and storytelling tools. These are our beautiful tools that are there, our narratives, Indian narratives, be it in art forms or be it on our own saris and the blouse that I have worn. Look at the beautiful handwork, the embroidery, and the Warli designs that are here. They're all the beautiful narratives that you pick up. So how do you become a storyteller? Not just by copying somebody, but finding your own inner storyteller. Yes, and that is what is the art. The skill can be learned. The art, the skill is external. The art, you go within. And then find your calling. Find your strengths. Is music your strength? Is dance your strength? Is theater your strength? Is drawing or is making models? Look at this beautiful thing that children were, shown, babies, infants. Look at the art here. So I have realized that I am just a small speck which started growing in my mother's womb and then became and merged with the small specks that are there in the storytelling universe, which has made this world so beautiful. So many shining stars, the sun and the moon, and many, many more. That's my journey, the Kathakshetra Trust that I have formed. I would like to just wind up with this because earlier I thought that trusts, especially public charitable trusts, were formed only by people who had money, who had estates, who had businesses. Me, I'm just a poor storyteller. I never had riches. But then it is not just the cash, but the kind that can create a philanthropy. So I started my trust, which thanks to the great IAS officer who was there that day, who signed my papers for the trust, gave an 80G, because he happened to see me on the beach road, the Elliott's Beach, where I was collaborating with the Hindu in the car-free Sundays for 4 years. And at the Anna Centenary Library with my fellow storytellers, telling stories under the beautiful tree that has been set up there. So many experiences, so many journeys, the external. And I would like to tell you I'll just wind up with Coward, where we started off, because this reminds me as a literature student of Raghava Pandaviyam. Raghava Pandaviyam was written by Pingali Surana, the Telugu poet, where he has very beautifully brought in the stories of Ramayana and Mahabharata. He has chosen 6 chapters, and he has left the Upakathas in both the epics. He has picked up similar situations, and when you read the poems, you realize that in one context, it is Rama's story, Ramayana, and in the other, same poem will give you the meaning of Mahabharata. How is that possible? Just like the cupboard which has Ramayana here and Krishna Katha, the Mahabharata or the Bhagavatam, Krishna Leelas this side, Raghava Pandaviyam is so beautiful. And how is it achieved? By setting up the context, by shifting the focus from Ramayana to Mahabharata. There are certain common things that are there. So there is similarity, there is diversity, just like our beautiful culture of India. And if I go on about my journey, it goes on and on just like yours. So thank you so much once again to all my fellow storytellers and the academicians and everybody here, the great listeners. And believe me, each one of you is a storyteller. Each one of you is a story maker. Make whatever you have with your hands, whatever you have in your heart, whatever you plan in your head, put them all together and a beautiful story comes out. And you will also go through this most enriching and enchanting journey. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you so much, Lavanya ji. I think it's always a pleasure to listen to the story of a storyteller. You know, while we were framing the whole schedule, we were speaking to Deepaji, and I was talking about how India has nurtured a tradition of storytellers, not just as individuals, but as an entire community in itself. Every single Purana is almost narrated by Sutta Puranika. Whenever I read Sutta Puranika, I always imagine myself, as having seen one of them in reality. Whether it is Mahabharata or all the other Puranas, especially in Mahabharata, the Sutta Puranika, that is Ugrashrava Sauti, who narrates Mahabharata, and his father, Romaharshana. So there is an entire tradition. A community has dedicated its life to nurture civilizational stories and continue that over a period of time. And you can see that even in the modern times, in the recent times, you can see the Harikatha Sampradaya, where it is a family tradition. It's a community. So in some ways now, of course, the tradition is morphing because of all the new instruments and new situations, new contexts, new dynamic set in the world. A new set of skills are required now to recreate the same old tradition and continue forward. And in that, the contribution of stalwarts like Lavanya ji is extremely important. And today we listen to at least 5-6 such modern Sutta Puranikas, I would say. And this is like we've been discussing, this is a conference of academics, practitioners, storytellers, and aspiring practitioners, and stalwart Sutta Puranikas. And in this, whatever change happens in the world, whatever new instruments will come, Bharatiya Parampara will always have a way to reflect our knowledge in that modern form and ensure that we have our own bards in the modern, in those contemporary realities.
Yeah, thank you, Shivakumar ji. Just one point I would like to add here. the coward which you have beautifully chosen as the visual representation of the Indica conference, it is also showing the journey of storytelling, because Coward is a collaborative storytelling. There is the artist who has painted, and more importantly, there is the carpenter who has put the mechanism of the doors and the panels, and then the Kavadiya Bhatt who sings the story. In the same way, in our Indian storytelling tradition or across cultures, it is the tandem storytelling and the polyglot storytelling that we storytellers are experimenting with, that has each individual journey, and then the coming together, the convergence, and then the yes, and then just the going out, coming together. It's like a kolatam, it's like a dance, it's like a choreography.
Beautiful imagery of Kolata, and I think the times also introduces its own forces where people have to diverge, and then we always figure out how to converge as well.